The morning sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse, casting golden rays across the pristine white marble floors. Lena Martinez Blackwood stood in her walk-in closet, carefully selecting the perfect outfit for the most important day of her pregnancy. Today was the 20-week ultrasound appointment, the day she and her husband, Marcus, would finally see their baby's face clearly, learn the gender, and take home those precious photos that would sit on their nightstand for years to come. At 24, Alina had thought she'd found her fairy tale. 3 years ago, she was a struggling art student working part-time at a gallery. When Marcus Blackwood, tech mogul and heir to a real estate empire, walked into her life, their whirlwind romance had been the stuff of magazine covers, private jets to Paris, front-row seats at Fashion Week, and a proposal on a yacht in the Mediterranean that made international headlines. Now, 5 months pregnant with their first child, Alina should have felt nothing but pure joy. Instead, a nagging anxiety had been growing in her chest like a shadow creeping across her perfect world. He promised, she whispered to herself, running her hands over her growing belly as she chose a soft lavender dress. Marcus had always said purple brought out her eyes. He swore he wouldn't miss this appointment, no matter what. Their penthouse in Manhattan's Upper East Side was a testament to Marcus's success. The 8,000-square-foot space featured original artwork worth millions, furniture that appeared in architectural magazines, and views of Central Park that real estate agents called priceless. But lately it had begun to feel more like a beautiful prison than a home. Alina walked to the nursery. They'd been preparing a room she'd fought to decorate in warm, welcoming colors instead of the stark minimalist aesthetic Marcus preferred. Soft yellow walls, hand-painted murals of storybook characters, and a rocking chair that had belonged to her grandmother created an oasis of warmth in their otherwise cold, perfect home. She checked her phone, 9:30 a.m. Marcus should have been home from his business trip to Tokyo by now. His flight was scheduled to land at 7 a.m., giving him plenty of time to come home, shower, and drive with her to Dr. Rebecca Chin's office for their 11 a.m. appointment. The silence in the penthouse was deafening. No sound of Marcus's key in the door, no rumble of his voice on a business call, no familiar footsteps across the marble floors. Just Alina, alone with her growing anxiety and the subtle movements of the baby she was carrying. Her phone buzzed and her heart leaped with relief. Marcus's name flashed on the screen. Thank God, she breathed, answering immediately. I was starting to worry. Are you almost home? There was a pause, filled with airport noise and distant conversations. Alina, listen. ... Double quotes. Marcus's voice was strained, lacking its usual warmth. There's been a complication. Her stomach dropped. Kind of complication? Marcus, the appointment is in an hour and a half. We need to leave soon if we're going to make it through traffic. I'm not going to make it. The words hit her like a physical blow. I'm still in Tokyo. The Yamamoto deal fell through at the last minute, and I need to stay here to salvage it. This could make or break the entire Asian expansion. Alina sank onto the velvet bench at the foot of their king-sized bed, her free hand instinctively protecting her belly. But you promised. You said nothing could keep you away from seeing our baby for the first time. Don't be dramatic, Alina. His voice had turned cold, dismissive, a tone she'd been hearing more and more lately. It's just an ultrasound. No. They'll give you pictures, won't they? We can look at them together when I get back. Just an ultrasound? Her voice cracked. Marcus, this is our child. Our first child. I thought this mattered to you. Of course it matters. But so does our financial future. This deal is worth $200 million, Alina. Do you understand what that means? It means security for our family, for our child's future. I need you to be understanding. Here, understanding. She was always being asked to be understanding. Understanding when he missed dinner because of emergency board meetings. Understanding when he canceled their anniversary trip for a last-minute investor conference. It's understanding. When he was too exhausted from 18-hour workdays to talk about baby names or nursery decorations. When will you be back? She asked quietly, the fight draining out of her. A few days, maybe a week? I'm not sure. Look, I have to go. The Yamamoto team is waiting for me. Yeah, the line went dead, leaving Alina staring at her phone in the oppressive silence of their empty home. She looked around at the luxury that surrounded her, the custom furniture, The original Picasso sketch on the wall. The fresh flowers that were delivered daily and felt emptier than she ever had in her life. The sound of the building's concierge calling from the lobby startled her from her spiral of disappointment. "Mrs. Blackwood. There's a Mrs. Margaret Blackwood here to see you. Should I send her up?" Margaret Blackwood. It's Marcus's mother. Elena's relationship with her mother-in-law was cordial but distant. Margaret was a formidable woman who had built her own real estate empire alongside her late husband, and she'd always made it clear that she found Elena ... adequate, but not quite what she'd envisioned for her son. "Yes, please send her up," Elena said, puzzled. Margaret rarely visited without advance notice. She'd never shown much interest in the pregnancy beyond sending an expensive bassinet and making polite inquiries about Elena's health. Elena quickly changed into the lavender dress and touched up her makeup, trying to hide the evidence of her tears. When the private elevator opened directly into their penthouse foyer, Margaret stepped out looking immaculate in a tailored black suit, her silver hair perfectly coiffed, her blue eyes so similar to Marcus's sharp and assessing. But there was something different about Margaret today. Beneath her usual composed exterior, Elena detected an undercurrent of tension, even urgency. "Margaret, what a surprise," Elena said, forcing a smile. "If you're looking for Marcus, he's still in Tokyo. His flight was delayed, and I know exactly where my son is." Margaret interrupted, her voice crisp. "I also know he won't be accompanying you to your appointment today." Elena's confusion deepened. "How did you?" "Get your purse, Elena. I'm driving you to the doctor's office." "That's really not necessary." "I can reschedule, or you are not rescheduling?" Margaret's tone brooked no argument. "You are 6 months pregnant with my grandchild. You will not miss this appointment, and you will not go alone." There was something in Margaret's manner that sent a chill down Elena's spine. This wasn't mere maternal concern or family duty. This felt like ... protection. "Margaret, is everything all right?" "You seem we'll discuss it in the car. But first, we need to make a stop." "A stop? Where?" Margaret's expression was grave as she looked at her daughter-in-law. "We're picking up Harrison Webb." Elena's blood turned to ice. Harrison Webb was the Blackwood family's attorney, a man she'd met only once at their wedding, and who handled the most serious legal matters for their business empire. "Why do we need a lawyer for a doctor's appointment?" Elena's voice was barely a whisper. Margaret's facade finally cracked slightly, revealing a flash of something that looked remarkably like fear. "Because, my dear," she said softly, "I'm afraid that after today, you're going to need all the protection we can give you." As Elena grabbed her purse with trembling hands, her mind raced with terrible possibilities. Why would Marcus's own mother be so insistent about this appointment? Why did they need a lawyer? And why did she suddenly feel like she was walking into something far more dangerous than a routine prenatal visit? The baby kicked strongly inside her, as if sensing her distress, and Elena placed both hands over her belly protectively. Storm was coming. She would weather it. She had to, not just for herself, but for the innocent life growing inside her. As they rode the elevator down to the parking garage, Elena caught her reflection in the polished steel doors. The woman looking back at her still wore the lavender dress, chosen for joy and celebration. But her eyes now held a wariness that hadn't been there an hour ago. Something was very, very wrong. She was about to find out just how wrong her perfect life had become. The ride in Margaret's Bentley was suffocatingly tense. Elena sat in the passenger seat, her hands protectively cradled around her belly, watching the familiar streets of Manhattan blur past as her mother-in-law navigated through traffic with grim determination. Neither woman spoke, but the silence was heavy with unspoken secrets. Margaret pulled into the underground parking garage of a sleek glass tower in Midtown. "Harrison's office," she explained curtly, parking in a reserved spot near the elevators. Harrison Webb emerged from the elevator moments later, a distinguished man in his 60s with salt and pepper hair and the kind of serious demeanor that came from handling the darkest secrets of New York's elite. His usually warm smile was absent as he slid into the back seat. "Elena," he nodded gravely. "I'm sorry we have to meet under these circumstances." "What circumstances?" Elena's voice cracked with frustration. "Would someone please tell me what's going on?" Why do I need a lawyer for a doctor's appointment? Harrison and Margaret exchanged a meaningful look in the rearview mirror. Lena Harrison began carefully. What I'm about to tell you may be difficult to hear, especially in your condition. I'm pregnant, not fragile, Alina snapped, surprising herself with her sharpness. Just tell me what's happening. Poor Margaret pulled out of the garage and headed toward Dr. Chen's office. 3 weeks ago, I received a very disturbing phone call from James Richardson at the bank. Alina knew the name. Richardson was the Blackwood family's private banker, a man who had handled their accounts for over 2 decades. He was concerned about some unusual activity in the family trust accounts, Margaret continued. Large transfers, liquidation of long-term investments, movement of funds to accounts he'd never seen before. Elena's heart began to race. What kind of transfers? Harrison leaned forward from the back seat. Alina, in the past 6 months, Marcus has systematically moved over $150 million out of the family's core assets. He's liquidated stocks that have been in the family for generations, emptied trust funds that were meant to secure the family's future for decades to come. But that's impossible, Alina protested. If you would have told me about something that major. We discuss all important financial decisions. The silence that followed her statement was deafening. When was the last time Marcus actually discussed finances with you? Margaret asked quietly. Real finances, not just what handbag to buy or which charity gala to attend. Alina opened her mouth to respond, then closed it. When had they last had a real conversation about money? Marcus handled everything, told her not to worry her pretty little head about such things. He gave her unlimited access to credit cards and never questioned her spending, but actual financial discussions? She couldn't remember the last time. The Tokyo deal he mentioned this morning, Harrison continued. There is no Tokyo deal, at least not the kind he's described to you. We verified this through our own contacts. Yamamoto Industries has. Never heard of Marcus Blackwood or his company? Alina felt like the world was tilting beneath her. Then where is he? We believe he's in the Cayman Islands, Margaret said, her knuckles white as she gripped the steering wheel, setting up. The final stage of what appears to be an elaborate financial escape plan. Escape plan? Elena's voice was barely a whisper. Harrison opened a briefcase beside him and pulled out a thick folder. Alina, we've discovered evidence that Marcus has been operating a sophisticated investment fraud for at least 2 years. He's been using the Blackwood name and reputation to attract investors, promising returns that were simply impossible to deliver. That's not true, Alina said desperately. Marcus is successful. Look at how we live, the money we have. The money you had, Margaret corrected grimly. Alina, the penthouse is mortgaged to the hilt. The cars are leased. Most of the artwork is on loan from galleries. The life you've been living is a carefully constructed facade, funded by money stolen from investors who trusted the Blackwood. Name Alina felt nauseous, and it had nothing to do with her pregnancy. But the business trips, the deals, some were real in the beginning, Harrison explained. But as the scheme grew larger, as more investors demanded returns he couldn't deliver, Marcus became desperate. He started using new investors' money to pay fake dividends to earlier investors. It's called a Ponzi scheme, Alina. And now it's collapsing. They had arrived at Dr. Chun's medical building, but none of them moved to get out of the car. There's more, Margaret said, her voice thick with emotion Alina had never heard before. Harrison, show her the photographs. With reluctance, Harrison pulled out a manila envelope. Alina, I need to prepare you for this. He hired a private investigator to follow Marcus's movements over the past month. Elena's hands trembled as she took the envelope. Inside were a series of photographs, clearly taken with a telephoto lens. The first few showed Marcus at what appeared to be expensive restaurants and hotels. But as she flipped through them, her heart shattered completely. Marcus, her husband, the father of her unborn child, locked in passionate embraces with a stunning redhead. Marcus and the woman entering hotel rooms together, or Marcus and the woman shopping for what appeared to be expensive jewelry, him sliding a ring onto her finger. Her name is Sophia Chen, Harrison said gently. She's a financial analyst who's been working with Marcus for the past year. Our investigator believes she's been helping him move the stolen funds to offshore accounts. Alina stared at the final photograph, Marcus and Sophia on what looked like a yacht, champagne glasses raised in a toast, both wearing elaborate diamond rings. They looked like a couple celebrating their engagement. "The Cayman Islands trip isn't about business," Margaret said quietly. "We believe he's planning to disappear completely. New identity, new life, new wife. Leaving you to face the legal consequences of his crimes." Elena's world crumbled. The loving husband, the successful businessman, the excited father-to-be, it was all a lie. Oh, she was married to a criminal who was planning to abandon her while she carried his child. "But why?" she whispered. "Why would he do this to me?" "To us?" She placed her hands over her belly. "Because sociopaths don't form real emotional attachments," Harrison said bluntly. "To Marcus, you were probably just another prop in his elaborate performance. Perfect wife helped legitimize him, made him appear stable and trustworthy to investors. And when the scheme started falling apart, you became a liability," Margaret added, her voice breaking slightly. "A pregnant wife asking questions would complicate his escape plan." Elena looked up at the medical building where, in just a few minutes, she would see her baby for the first time. The joy she had anticipated was now poisoned by the knowledge that the child's father was a monster who had never truly wanted either of them. "What do I do now?" she asked, tears streaming down her face. Margaret reached over and took her daughter-in-law's hand, the first truly warm gesture she had ever made toward Elena. "Now," she said firmly, "we go see your baby. We celebrate this new life. And then we make sure that Marcus Blackwood pays for what he's done to you, to our family, and to all the people he's stolen from." Harrison nodded grimly. "Elena, I know this is overwhelming, but I need you to know that we're going to protect you and your child, legally and financially. Marcus may have thought he was clever, but he made one crucial mistake." "What's that?" "He underestimated the two women who love that baby you're carrying more than he ever could." As they finally got out of the car and walked toward the medical building, Elena felt a strange mix of devastation and determination. Her perfect life had been revealed as a complete lie, but perhaps, in the ruins of that deception, she could build something real, something honest, something worthy of the innocent child growing inside her. The baby kicked strongly, as if responding to her mother's newfound resolve, and Elena managed her first genuine smile in ours. "Don't worry, little one," she whispered. "Mommy's going to make sure you're protected, no matter what it takes." The waiting room of Dr. Rebecca Chin's office felt surreal. Elena sat between Margaret and Harrison. Three people bound together by betrayal and determination. Surrounded by other expectant couples, excitedly chatting about baby names and nursery themes. The normalcy of it all felt like a cruel joke. Elena Martinez Blackwood, nurse's cheerful voice cut through the tension. As they stood, Harrison placed a gentle hand on Elena's shoulder. "We'll be right here when you come out. Take your time and try to enjoy this moment. Your baby deserves that joy, regardless of everything else." Dr. Chen, a warm woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a reassuring manner, welcomed Elena and Margaret into the ultrasound room. "Where's the proud papa today?" she asked, preparing the equipment. "Business emergency," Elena managed, the lie tasting bitter on her tongue. "Well, grandmothers are wonderful substitutes," Dr. Chen smiled. At Margaret, who surprised everyone, including herself, by reaching for Elena's hand as she lay on the examination table. The moment the ultrasound wand touched Elena's belly and the baby appeared on the screen, everything else faded away. There, in perfect detail, was her child, tiny fingers flexing, feet kicking, heart beating strong and steady. "My," Dr. Chen breathed, adjusting the screen for a better view. "Someone's very active today. Let's see. Everything looks absolutely perfect. A strong heartbeat, excellent growth measurements, and ... She moved the wand slightly, getting a better angle. Elena looked at Margaret, who was staring at the screen with tears in her eyes. "Yes," Elena whispered. "Please, congratulations, ladies. You're having a healthy baby boy, a son." Elena's heart filled with a fierce protective love she had never experienced before. This tiny person on the screen was hers, completely and utterly hers, regardless of what his father had done. Margaret squeezed her hand tightly. "He's beautiful. Elena, absolutely beautiful." Dr. Chen printed out several ultrasound photos. Elena studied her son's face on the screen. He looked peaceful, safe, floating in his protected world, unaware of the chaos surrounding his existence. "I'm going to keep you safe," she whispered to the screen. "I promise." Back in the waiting room, Harrison stood immediately when he saw them emerge. "Everything all right?" Alina held up the ultrasound photos, and for the first time in hours, she smiled genuinely. "I'm having a son." Harrison's stern expression softened. "Congratulations. He's fortunate to have such a strong mother." "Now," Margaret said, her businesslike demeanor returning, "we need to discuss our next steps. Harrison, have you heard anything from your contacts?" They moved to a more private corner of the waiting room. Harrison pulled out his phone and showed them a series of text messages. "My investigator confirmed it. Marcus and Sophia Chen flew to Grand Cayman this morning on a private jet. They're staying at the Ritz-Carlton, registered as Mr. and Mrs. Marcus Ashworth." Ashworth. Alina frowned. "It's the name on one of the fake identities he's created," Harrison explained. "Elena, he's moved approximately $180 million to accounts in the Caymans, Switzerland, and several other countries with strong bank secrecy laws. If he successfully transfers those funds to cryptocurrency or completely untraceable accounts, the money will be gone forever." Alina stared at the ultrasound photo in her hands. "What about the people he stole from? The investors?" "Hundreds of families, Elena. Retirement funds, college savings. Money people trusted him with because they believed in the Blackwood reputation." Margaret's voice was thick with shame and anger. "My late husband's name, our family's legacy. Marcus has destroyed it all. But we can stop him, right?" Lena looked between them desperately. "There has to be something we can do." Harrison nodded grimly. "There is, but it requires you to do something very difficult, Elena, and potentially dangerous." "What do you mean?" "Marcus doesn't know that we know about his plan. As far as he's concerned, you're still the naive, trusting wife waiting at home for him to return from his business trip." Elena's stomach clenched with understanding. "You want me to contact him? We need him to believe everything is normal while we work with federal authorities to freeze his accounts and gather evidence," Harrison explained. "But Elena, if he suspects for even a moment that you know the truth, he'll disappear completely. The money will be gone, and he'll never face justice." Margaret leaned forward intently. "Elena, I know what I'm about to ask is terrible, but you may be the only person who can convince him to return to the United States voluntarily." "How?" Harrison and Margaret exchanged another meaningful look. "The baby," Margaret said quietly. "If you tell him there's a medical emergency with the pregnancy, that you need him to come home immediately, ... Lena felt sick. "You want me to lie about my son's health?" "Not lie exactly," Harrison said carefully, "but perhaps exaggerate some concerns. Make him believe his presence is urgently needed. It would give us time to coordinate with federal authorities and ensure the accounts are frozen before he realizes what's happening." Alina looked down at the ultrasound photo again. Her son's perfect profile stared back at her, innocent and trusting. "What if he doesn't come back? What if he chooses the money over us? Then at least you'll know where you truly stand," Margaret said softly. "And we'll pursue other legal avenues to recover what we can and ensure he faces consequences for his crimes." Alina was quiet for a long moment, processing everything. Finally, she looked up with a steely determination that surprised all three of them. "What exactly do you need me to do?" Harrison pulled out a small digital recorder. "We need you to call Marcus and have a conversation that will serve as evidence of his fraud. Get him to admit to moving money, to the fake deals, anything. That will help prosecutors build their case. And get him to come home," Margaret added. "Whatever it takes." Alina took the recorder with trembling hands. "When tonight? Our sources indicate he's planning to make the final transfers tomorrow morning.
After that,
The money trail goes cold and Marcus Blackwood ceases to exist." Lena stood up, cradling the ultrasound photos against her chest. She thought about the nursery she had so lovingly prepared, the life she had imagined for her family, the man she had believed she married. But that man had never existed. The real Marcus was a stranger, a criminal who had used her love as a weapon against her. "All right," she said firmly. "I'll do it. But I want something in return." "What?" Harrison asked. "I want him to suffer the way he's made me suffer. Want him to feel the betrayal, the humiliation, the complete destruction of everything he thought was safe? Elena's voice was steel wrapped in silk. I want him to lose everything, just like he planned to do to me. Margaret smiled for the first time since this nightmare began. My dear girl, she said with genuine admiration, I think you're going to fit into this family just fine. As they left the medical building, Elena felt the baby kick strongly inside her. Her son, she realized, had just witnessed his mother transform from a naive victim into a formidable opponent. Don't worry, little one, she whispered again. Daddy's about to learn that he picked the wrong women to cross. The afternoon sun felt different on Elena's face as they walked to the car. Harsher, perhaps, but also more honest than the gentle morning light that had illuminated her false paradise just hours earlier. Tonight, she would make the most important phone call of her life. Tonight, the real Elena Martinez Blackwood would be born. Not the decorative wife Marcus had wanted, but the fierce mother her son deserved. And Marcus would finally discover that underestimating the women in his life had been his biggest mistake of all. The game was about to begin, and this time, Elena was determined to win. Elena stood in the courthouse steps, the November wind whipping through her dark hair as reporters shouted questions from behind police barriers. At 8 months pregnant, she moved carefully but confidently, her hand resting on her rounded belly where her son kicked strong and steady. Margaret walked beside her, no longer the cold, distant mother-in-law, but a fierce ally who had become the grandmother Elena's own mother had never lived to be. Harrison Webb flanked them on the other side, briefcase in hand, wearing the satisfied expression of a man who had just delivered perfect justice. Mrs. Blackwood, how does it feel to know your husband will spend the next 25 years in federal prison? A reporter shouted. Elena paused at the microphone that had been set up, her voice clear and steady as she addressed the crowd. My name is Elena Martinez, she said firmly. I reclaimed my maiden name 3 months ago when I divorced a man I realized I had never actually known. As for how I feel about Marcus Blackwood's sentencing, she paused, placing both hands protectively over her belly. I feel relieved that a dangerous criminal can no longer hurt innocent families. But mostly, I feel grateful that my son will grow up knowing the truth about right and wrong rather than learning to live a lie. The questions came rapid fire, but Elena had said what she came to say, with Margaret's arm linked through hers. They made their way to the waiting car. The transformation in Elena's life had been swift and complete. The penthouse had been seized as part of the federal investigation, its contents sold to compensate victims of Marcus's Ponzi scheme. Elena now lived in Margaret's spacious but warm townhouse on the Upper West Side, in a guest suite that had been converted into a proper apartment for her and the baby. The prenuptial agreement had been thrown out exactly as Harrison predicted, declared fraudulent due to Marcus's deception. But Elena had surprised everyone by refusing to claim any of the legitimate Blackwood assets. That money should go to the investors he stole from, she had insisted. I won't build my son's future on other people's losses. Instead, Elena had done something that shocked New York's high society. She had gone back to work. Her art degree, which Marcus had always dismissed as a pretty hobby, became the foundation for a new career. Elena opened a small gallery specializing in works by emerging artists, many of them women who had overcome their own betrayals and adversities. The gallery, called Phoenix Rising, was located in a converted warehouse in Brooklyn and had quickly gained recognition for its powerful, authentic exhibitions. How are you feeling about tomorrow? Margaret asked as their car made its way through Manhattan traffic. Tomorrow was Elena's due date. After months of careful monitoring, Dr. Chen had confirmed that the baby was perfectly healthy, despite the stress of his first months in utero. Ready, Elena said simply. More than ready. Margaret squeezed her hand. He's going to be extraordinary, this grandson of mine. Look at everything he's already survived, Elena smiled, thinking about the nursery they had prepared together. In Margaret's townhouse, gone were the cold, designer perfection Marcus had insisted upon. Instead, the room was filled with handmade quilts, wooden toys carved by local artisans, and paintings Elena had created herself during the quiet evenings of her pregnancy. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Carla, her gallery manager. The Times review is incredible. They're calling your latest exhibition a raw, honest exploration of feminine strength in the face of betrayal. Congratulations. Alina had never felt prouder of anything in her life. Each painting in the exhibition told a story of a woman who had discovered her own power after losing everything she thought mattered. "Any word from the federal prosecutors about asset recovery?" Alina asked Harrison, who was reviewing documents. In the seat across from them. "Better news than we hoped," Harrison replied with satisfaction. "They've recovered approximately $140 million of the stolen funds. It won't make everyone whole, but it's significantly more than most victims of schemes like this ever see returned." Lena nodded. She had testified at Marcus's trial, facing him across a courtroom for the first time since that devastating phone call. He had looked older, his charm replaced by the desperate demeanor of a man who knew he had lost everything. Sophia Chen had cooperated with authorities in exchange for a reduced sentence, providing crucial evidence about the money laundering operations. When Marcus's eyes met Elena's during her testimony, she had seen something she'd never expected: genuine remorse, not for his crimes, but for losing her. In that moment, she realized he had finally understood what he had thrown away. But it was too late. Far too late. "There is one more matter we need to discuss," Harrison said carefully. "The Department of Justice has made an unusual offer." Alina looked at him curiously. "They want you to work with them as a consultant on financial fraud cases, specifically those involving domestic deception. Your insights into how intelligent women can be manipulated by sophisticated criminals could help other victims." Alina considered this. "What would that involve?" "Speaking to support groups, helping investigators understand the psychological manipulation tactics, possibly testifying in similar cases." Harrison paused. "Lena, you've become a symbol of survival and strength. Many women are following your story, drawing inspiration from how you've rebuilt your life." Margaret looked at her with pride. "It would be a way to ensure that what you've been through helps other women avoid the same fate." Elena felt her son kick, as if offering his opinion on the matter. "I'll think about it," she said. "After this little guy arrives and we've settled into our new normal." As they arrived at Margaret's townhouse, Alina looked up at the warm lights glowing in the windows. 6 months ago, she had thought happiness meant living in a marble palace with unlimited credit cards and a husband who looked perfect in photographs. Now she knew that happiness meant something entirely different: the freedom to be authentically herself, meaningful work that made a difference, relationships built on truth rather than deception, and the promise of raising a child who would never doubt his mother's love or integrity. That night, as Elena lay in bed reading a book about single motherhood, she felt the familiar sensation of strong kicks from her son. "What do you think, little one?" she whispered to her belly. "Ready to meet the world tomorrow?" As if in response, a particularly strong kick made her laugh out loud. Alina Martinez, no longer Blackwood, never again to be defined by a man who had never deserved her, closed her eyes and dreamed of the future she was building. A future where her son would learn that real wealth wasn't measured in dollars, but in integrity, compassion, and the courage to start over when life demanded it. The morning,